Hello, my name is Elizabeth. I am a 40-year-old woman who has experienced marriage twice. My current marriage is wonderful, but my first one was quite the opposite. My first husband, Thomas, and I were the quintessential high school sweethearts, embodying the jock and cheerleader dynamic. At that time, he brought me joy, and being my first relationship, I poured everything into it, believing we were meant to be together forever. We even planned to attend the same university to stay close to each other. However, at 20, during my sophomore year, I became pregnant, which was a shock and disappointment to both me and my family. My mother had always been skeptical about Thomas, sensing something unsettling about him, but I was determined to prove her wrong. Despite my family's reservations, they agreed to support us until we could finish our education and secure stable jobs, a gesture I deeply appreciate. Thomas and I got married in a simple courthouse ceremony, and soon after, we welcomed our first child. Initially, Thomas was a dedicated father, and I felt vindicated in my choice. However, life became more challenging when I was pregnant with our second child. Although I had graduated from college by then, I had to leave my job to care for our children while Thomas worked tirelessly to support us. But things took a turn for the worse a few months after our second child was born. Thomas's behavior changed dramatically, and despite my attempts to discuss it, he remained distant. Then, one day, after taking the kids out, I returned to find our apartment emptied of all his belongings. Panicked and with my children crying, I tried to contact him, but to no avail. In distress, I went to my mother's house, barely holding back tears. Upon seeing us, my mother quickly let us in, alarmed by our state. I explained the situation through my shock and tears, leaving us all to wonder why Thomas had suddenly left. I couldn't understand why, but Thomas had been acting strangely for quite some time. He wouldn't communicate with me, and then, abruptly, he left. In my confusion and distress, my mother suggested we wait a bit before considering more drastic steps, like filing for divorce and offering her support regardless of the outcome. Despite my deep love for him, I was bewildered by how he could abandon his children. I know, I admitted, feeling a mix of sadness and disbelief. I just wish I could confront him, ask him why he did what he did. But we need to focus on moving forward, not for my own sake, but for our children's. My mother was right, as always. The following months were a blur of tears and determination as I adjusted to life without Thomas, raising two children who reminded me so much of him. Night after night, I cried myself to sleep, but as time passed, those intense emotions began to fade. When my children asked about their father, I eventually shared the truth with them. They were understandably upset, but also showed a remarkable capacity for understanding. Throughout it all, my mother was my rock, making the challenge of single parenthood more manageable than I could have ever imagined on my own. It wasn't until 11 years later that my life took a significant turn. I met my now husband, Jack, in a setting as ordinary as a bar during a friend's birthday celebration. My mother was watching the kids, allowing me a rare night out to unwind and enjoy some adult company. Most of the evening I stayed close to my friends, engaging in light-hearted conversations and laughter. However, as the night drew to a close, Jack approached me. My friends had long encouraged me to give dating another chance, but the scars from my past with Thomas made me hesitant. Yet, there was something about Jack that prompted me to let my guard down. He started by offering to buy me a drink, an offer I accepted. We waited for our drinks before delving into a more meaningful conversation. "So what brings you here?" Jack inquired, his interest genuine. "It's my friend's birthday, and I'm just here to celebrate with her," I replied. "That's nice. How about I send over some drinks for all of them?" he offered generously. "All of them? There are 6 more people there," I said, taken aback by his kindness. "It's all right. I'll cover it," he assured me, his gesture reflecting a generosity and warmth that I hadn't encountered in a long time. This moment marked the beginning of a new chapter, one filled with hope and the possibility of love beyond the pain of the past. Over the next couple of hours, Jack and I enjoyed a lively conversation, with him joking about his financial status after generously offering to buy drinks for my friend's birthday celebration. "So, you're pretty well off, huh?" I teased, hinting at his generous gesture. He chuckled. "You might say that, but it's not something I flaunt. It's just nice to do something special, especially for a birthday." I admired his humility. "It's impressive. Not many can do that without coming across as boastful. And you're doing it simply to make someone's day better. That's quite kind." Jack smiled. I guess I'm a sucker for making a good impression, especially around beautiful women. I laughed, teasing him about his apparent vulnerability. Really? Does every pretty face make you this generous? Maybe, he admitted with a grin. But hey, it's your friend's birthday, not a lie, right? Absolutely true, I assured him, playfully cautioning him about his weakness. He suggested, somewhat flirtatiously, that having a beautiful woman by his side might cure him of his broad susceptibility. Our conversation flowed effortlessly, which was unusual for me, given my introverted nature. Perhaps it was Jack's charisma or the relaxed atmosphere, but I found myself engaging with ease. As the night wound down, my friends and I thanked Jack for his generosity. Before parting, we exchanged numbers, setting the stage for what would become a constant exchange of messages and calls. Our conversations ranged from mundane daily events to exciting personal news, gradually weaving Jack into the fabric of my daily life. Our initial public meetups eventually transitioned to more personal settings, including visits to each other's homes. I remember my astonishment upon seeing Jack's house for the first time. It was nothing short of a mansion, a fact he modestly acknowledged with a laugh, hinting at a future together that might include sharing such luxury. Jack was candid about his intentions, expressing a desire for marriage and a life shared with me. His comfort and openness with me were unlike anything he'd experienced before, he'd say, which only deepened my affection for him. Remarkably, he embraced the idea of my children as his own, showing genuine concern and affection, further solidifying my love for him. After I opened up to Jack about my past with Thomas, his response was nothing short of extraordinary. He went to great lengths to demonstrate his affection and commitment, making it clear how different he was from Thomas. This contrast helped me realize why so many people had reservations about my previous relationship. While the end of my marriage to Thomas was painful, Jack played a crucial role in helping me move past that chapter of my life, for which I was immensely thankful. We didn't wait long to get married, just a year of dating, opting for a destination wedding. We decided to keep the event intimate, inviting only our closest friends and family. My children were ecstatic about the union, frequently expressing their love for Jack, marking yet another positive development in our lives. With Jack, every concern I had seemed to melt away. He not only accepted my children as his own, but went out of his way to support their education, despite my insistence that I could handle it. He even had their rooms personalized to their tastes before we all started living together, showcasing his dedication to being a part of our lives. Jack's actions were a stark contrast to Thomas's, contributing significantly to our family's healing and growth. Not long after marrying, Jack and I welcomed a child together, yet he never showed any favoritism. He treated all the children equally. A year into our marriage, my children asked Jack to legally adopt them, solidifying our bond as a family. From then on, we did everything together, dining out, vacationing, and enjoying each other's company. My career was thriving, and Jack's business was flourishing too. Life seemed perfect, and before I knew it, 6 years had flown by. Then, unexpectedly, I received a call from an unknown number. The voice on the other end caught me off guard. "Hello, guess who? It's Elizabeth." Confused, I responded, "Who is this?" The caller revealed himself. "It's Thomas. How have you been?" I was stunned. "Thomas, how did you even find my number?" His reply was dismissive. "Forgot how you always complain. I just found your number, that's all." The call from Thomas was a shock, especially after years of building a new life without him. His sudden reappearance and the manner of it brought back a whirlwind of emotions, challenging the peace and stability I had worked so hard to create with Jack and our family. Thomas's unexpected call took me by surprise. He reached out, curious about how life had been treating me since our separation. His tone suggested a casual chat, yet our past was anything but. He rationalized his sudden departure by claiming we were bound for divorce due to our constant struggles, asserting he wanted to spare us the emotional turmoil. "You're something else, truly," I responded, barely containing my disbelief. Leaving without a word, and now this call, it's unbelievable. Thomas seemed unfazed, boasting about his new life married to a wealthy woman. His willingness to embrace her children, purely influenced by her financial status, revealed a side of him I was all too familiar with. He gloated about landing a high-paying job through her connections, declaring he was living his dream. So, you've essentially replaced your children with someone else's for the sake of money? I asked, my voice laced with disdain. Well, you do what you have to, right? He replied nonchalantly. Disgusted, I urged him never to contact me again and ended the call. The audacity of Thomas to brag about his affluent lifestyle left me seething with anger and overwhelmed by a flurry of emotions. My heart ached, not for myself, but for my children, who had grown up largely without their father. Thomas's willingness to forsake his flesh and blood for financial gain was a painful reminder of the challenges we faced starting our family at such a young age. Feeling revolted by his selfishness and lack of integrity, I decided to block his number, eager to leave that chapter of my life firmly in the past. Later, I shared the ordeal with Jack, who was understandably upset but supported my decision to block Thomas. However, my resolve was tested once more when, about a week later, I received another call from an unknown number. Thomas again. My frustration mounted, wondering how many times I'd have to distance myself from a past that refused to let me go. Thomas's calls transformed into a relentless showcase of his newfound wealth, with him eagerly sharing tales of his latest extravagant purchases and the achievements of his new family. My patience wore thin, and I soon found myself disconnecting his calls without a second thought. Yet, he persisted, using various numbers to bypass my blocks, seemingly finding satisfaction in my annoyance. Eventually, I resorted to ignoring his calls altogether, though he continued to reach out sporadically, relishing the disruption he caused in my life. During a particularly stressful day at work, Thomas's call came through once more. His voice, oozing with arrogance, greeted me, but I had no interest in entertaining his provocations. He attempted to engage me with tales of his success, hinting at a desire to make me envious of his lavish lifestyle and recent promotion at a prestigious media company, Digidome. Despite my frustration, I cut the conversation short, refusing to let his words affect me. However, something about his boastful declaration lingered in my mind, refusing to be dismissed. Digidome was a notable name in the media industry, celebrated for its role in promoting top-tier influencers and journalists, a fact I couldn't ignore given its connection to my husband Jack, the CEO and founder of the company. This revelation struck me as a twist of fate, presenting an unexpected opportunity to address not just the nuisance of Thomas's calls, but also the deeper wound of his abandonment of our children. Eagerly awaiting Jack's return home, I planned to share this astonishing coincidence with him. Upon his arrival, I couldn't contain my excitement, hinting at a significant discovery. Jack, understandably agitated by the mention of Thomas's harassment, was initially focused on his protective instincts. But as I revealed the connection between Thomas and Digidome, the atmosphere charged with a mix of shock and anticipation. This unforeseen connection to Thomas through Jack's company opened a path to potentially rectify some of the wrongs he had inflicted, not just on me, but on our children as well, with a mixture of disbelief and strategic thinking. We contemplated the implications of this discovery and how best to leverage it, not for revenge, but for a semblance of justice for the emotional and familial neglect Thomas had sown. When Thomas called to boast about his significant promotion at Digidome, I was momentarily taken aback. "He's working at your company?" I clarified with Jack, my husband, and the brains behind Digidome. The coincidence seemed too bizarre at first, and Jack teased me for not immediately connecting the dots given my agitated state. Jack, sensing an opportunity for a more profound lesson, half-seriously suggested firing Thomas. Yet, we both felt a mere dismissal wouldn't suffice. A plan began to take shape, one that involved not only retribution, but also a moment of reckoning for Thomas. We agreed to bide our time, recording his arrogant calls over the next few weeks. These recordings would serve as the cornerstone of our strategy. Digidome was set to host a significant event in 5 months, with Thomas at the helm. This event, attended by notable figures, provided the perfect stage for our plan. My task was to calmly collect Thomas's boastful calls, now with a sense of purpose fueling my patience. Each recorded conversation was a piece of the puzzle of the grand reveal we envisioned. As the event approached, my anticipation grew. Initially, I had reservations about attending due to my aversion to large gatherings and the spotlight. Yet the prospect of witnessing Thomas's downfall firsthand was too compelling to miss. Jack understood my hesitation, but also knew the importance of this moment. He purchased a stunningly beautiful dress for the occasion, a symbol of the dignified position from which we would address the situation. I remained discreet, waiting in the car until the opportune moment. Jack's introduction was my cue. He began his speech with an announcement of wanting to introduce his wife for the first time to the company and its associates. This setup was not just about revealing my identity, but also setting the stage for a dramatic turn of events that would underscore the values we held dear and the consequences of betraying them. As I stepped onto the stage, Thomas was already there, and his reaction was immediate. His face turned ashen and he seemed to shrink in size. I couldn't help but let a small smirk escape as I walked past him, noting his desperate attempts to wipe away the sweat with his handkerchief. Jack took this moment to shower me with praise, sharing with the audience the profound impact I've had on his life and the joy of co-parenting our children. With each compliment, Thomas seemed to grow more uneasy, visibly sweating under the weight of the situation. My heart swelled with pride as the audience applauded, celebrating the journey Jack and I had shared. Then, Jack's speech veered into more serious territory. He opened up about the harassment I'd been facing from my ex-husband, detailing how Thomas had left his family behind for a wealthier lifestyle, only to find himself employed by Jack's very own company. The crowd was audibly shocked, their murmurs filling the room as they speculated about the identity of my ex. Jack called for silence before dramatically revealing that Thomas was the man in question. As Thomas glanced nervously towards the exits, realizing too late that fleeing would only confirm his guilt, Jack pointed him out. The audience's reaction was palpable, a mix of disbelief and intrigue. But Jack wasn't finished. He proceeded to play recordings of the boastful and harassing calls Thomas had made to me, leaving Thomas frozen in place as his own words echoed through the room. Following this undeniable proof, Jack announced Thomas's termination from the company, a decision met with overwhelming support from the crowd. As Jack and I exited the stage, the feeling of vindication was unparalleled. Thomas was promptly escorted away, and the event continued without a hitch. It was a moment of triumph, not just for me, but for our entire family. The next day brought another wave of good fortune. An offer for a new position at a firm, a direct result of the strength and resilience I had shown. It was a sweet culmination of a challenging journey, a testament to the fact that sometimes the universe aligns in the most unexpected yet fitting ways. Receiving a call from an unknown number. I was surprised to hear Thomas on the other end, especially after everything that had happened. "It's quite daring of you to call me again," I remarked. He immediately accused me of deception. "How could you not tell me you've remarried, and to my boss no less?" he demanded. I had made it clear to Thomas multiple times that his presence in my life, or the lack thereof, meant I owed him no explanations or updates. "Thomas, I've told you before. I've moved on from caring about what you think or do," I replied. He argued that I should have informed him out of common decency, suggesting that knowing the identity of my husband would have made him rethink his actions. "So, you're saying you'd only stop harassing me because my husband is your boss? That's not decency, that's self-preservation," I countered. Thomas seemed to misunderstand the concept of decency, considering his history of abandoning his family. When he revealed that his recent actions had led his wife to leave him, taking their children, he tried to blame me for his circumstances. "You've made your choices, Thomas. This mess is of your own making," I told him firmly. It was empowering to stand my ground and not let Thomas's blame-shifting affect me. I wished him luck in finding a new path, one that hopefully led him to reflect on his actions and their impact on others. This final interaction felt like a closing chapter, allowing me to move forward with Jack and our family. Our life together has been fulfilling, and our children have grown into remarkable individuals. I've found peace and validation in moving past the turmoil caused by Thomas's actions. Now, I focus on the joy and love that fill my days, grateful for the strength and clarity this journey has brought me.